I'm going to ask my panel to join me up here. And while they're doing so, I am Robert Gray. I'm a member of the board of the Legal Services Corporation. And Martha, we miss you every day. Thank you for your service. You know, our opportunity to examine the intersection of corporate responsibility and providing leadership in this very important area of access to justice is so critical, as Martha said, to the way in which our society is evolving. I want you to know that we are joined today by some very special corporate leaders, and their work is phenomenal. And so thank you very much, my colleagues, for joining me today. Let me introduce Kristen Sunda. Kristen is the co-founder and CEO of Paladin, where she works to increase access to justice through advanced technology in helping organizations build compatible and progressive ways to deliver pro bono services. To her right is Derek Douglas. Derek Douglas is the president of the Civil Committee of the Commercial Club of Chicago. My goodness, this guy has got all the business leaders in the community, the philanthropic community, the educational community, advancing ways in which we might build a more progressive way of delivering services to those who are less fortunate. Laura Stein is to his right. Laura Stein is to his right, and she's the Executive Vice President for Corporate and Legal Affairs of Mondelez International. Laura Stein and I go back an awful long ways. Her dad was Executive Director of the ABA when I was President of the association, and her family is well noted for the contributions that they make. Speaking of families and contributions, joined with us on her right is Chris Kennedy, chairman of the Joseph P. Kennedy Enterprises, Inc., where he is responsible for the development of the Kennedy's real estate foundation and holdings.
It's all been on time. All of the real estate's been developed on time. In contrast to me sitting down here, so I apologize. Thank you.
Chris, no apologies necessary. Your time is perfect. But he's also chairman of Top Box Foods, a nonprofit that delivers high-quality, affordable foods throughout the city. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming our panelists. Let's get after it. Kristen, can we start with you?
Oh, sure. Oh, I knew I shouldn't have picked the seat closest to you. Let's do it.
Well, you know, so Kristen was asked by John to help co-found and lead the Emerging Leaders Council. She is now a member of the Leaders Council, so she's graduated from that. But Kristen, your efforts in helping us develop that organization and that group of individuals was nothing less than spectacular. So thank you for that. But speak to, and her work in technology and helping those who are trying to develop their own startups is very notable. Working with women and other minority founders, she has developed 2 organizations that have worked diligently in making that happen. This is an important time where technology can serve a very useful purpose, making sure that those who are underserved have access to justice. Would you give us your thoughts about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Paladin, and our whole mission is to increase access to justice by helping legal teams run more efficient pro bono programs. And I see the opportunity for technology and AI as really incredible moving forward to help with really 2 buckets of work that we're focused on. The first is thinking about how do we build tools for individuals in need to help navigate our system. And the second is how do we build tools that help the helpers, right? So legal services organizations and pro bono lawyers. My background is with the U.S. Justice Department doing international criminal work in Mexico and Central America. I was splitting my time between DC and our embassy in Mexico City, working to extradite fugitives back to the U.S. And it was really at DOJ that I got to see firsthand how complicated our system is to navigate. I was one of the few Latinas on the team, one of the few people who spoke Spanish, and to me, I always say, if you are American, you speak English, you're well-educated, it's hard enough to navigate. And if you're not American, you don't speak English as a first language, and you're not well-educated, it can feel nearly impossible. And so I really got to see the value of having someone help you navigate each step of the process and learn that it could mean the difference between winning and losing your case. And so that's how the kernel for Paladin got started. And after that, joined the founding team of a tech company that we took global. We really scaled it internationally, and that's how I learned how to build a tech business from the ground up. And so Paladin is this intersection of figuring out how do we leverage technology to increase access to lawyers specifically through the pro bono ecosystem. And so through that, we've focused mostly on building tools that help nonprofits and legal services organizations connect more seamlessly through a free platform that we offer to top law firms and corporate teams, bar associations, government attorneys looking to help through a platform where they can enter their cases into a system once, click a button to have them sent out to that network in real time, and on the other side, really aim to increase pro bono engagement while decreasing all the administrative costs and overheads of what used to be a very manual and laborious process. On that side of helping folks get more involved, there are a number of tools that we can build out to make it easier for attorneys to find cases that are going to be a good fit, intake and vet them on the legal services side a lot more seamlessly through technology, route them to the right groups and organizations who can most readily help them, and then build document automation tools, e-filing tools, et cetera, on top of that to help the process of actually helping them a lot faster so we can help more people en masse. On the individual side, I think about all the ways that technology can help through each step of what I call the justice journey. So a low-income individual doesn't wake up one day and they have a legal problem, right? They just have a problem. And so the first step that I think about is how do we leverage tech to help them understand what is their legal issue and what are the potential remedies that they can pursue to solve that problem. I did a Google search last week for something related to eviction, and the second answer that came up was a BuzzFeed source. And I thought to myself, okay, BuzzFeed's great, but I think we can do a better job of leveraging technology and AI into these search engines and other technologies that people are more readily using to direct them to the right resources that we know are going to help them more efficiently and that are going to have some authority behind them. So we can help them identify their legal issues, number one. Number two, we can build out legal navigators, like I know a number of grantees have done here, to help people find the right resources for them. The next step then is helping them build out those document automation tools and e-filing systems so they can put together their case-related documents a lot more efficiently and also accurately in plain language. None of this legalese and legal jargon that's so confusing, even to folks within law, and help them finish their paperwork a lot more efficiently and accurately, and then also e-file it and track it through the system. So throughout all those different steps, whether you're trying to help yourself get through and navigate a case, or you're trying to help the people helping low-income individuals in need, there are a lot of different places throughout that process where we can plug in technology and make the work a lot more efficient and help serve more people more accurately at the end of the day.
Kristen, thank you so much. It is amazing. Technology has become so important that we have technology conferences now at LSC that have grown exponentially in terms of our understanding of being able to flatten that curve of the steep hill people have to climb to get access to justice. So thank you very much for your leadership and your continued involvement. Derek, from the White House to the State House to corporate boards, you have been at the center of a lot of partnerships and collaborations. Tell us the importance of being able to do that as a way of making sure that access to justice is a reality and not just a promise.
Well, can you hear me okay? First of all, thanks for inviting me to be here, John, a good close friend of mine who I met when I was at the University of Chicago. and for all the work that many of you do at LSCs. As Robert mentioned, this organization and the work you do is very near and dear to my heart. I started out my career as a public interest lawyer as well at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, where I was a Skadden Fellow to start, and then I went on at the permanent staff. And so got to see firsthand both the needs that are out there of low-income people to get quality legal support, but also the many challenges that they face in doing so. To your question about partnerships, and I actually think it's absolutely critical, it's foundational for how we need to get things done in society. And I've been fortunate to work in a lot of different venues. I now work at the Civic Committee and the Commercial Club, where I work with some of the largest companies in Chicago to think about how we can have a positive impact on the issues facing our city. I think that, and you know, both attending this event and talking to John more recently, it's got my mind thinking about how the business community can be a more direct partner to the LSC community and the people that are served there. There's a number of things that business does, and I think that the case for business getting involved is clear, because if you want to have a strong business environment, you want to have one that's inclusive of all people, where everyone has access to opportunity, everyone has the ability to fulfill their potential. I was at a meeting with Chris the other day, and he was saying talent is the #1 driver for business. And so low-income people, poor people, how can we make sure that they have economic opportunity to fulfill their talent? I think one way business can help is, you'd mentioned it as well, a lot of the issues, what you're dealing with at LSCs, are economic related at the end of the day, whether it's lending or housing or whatnot. So how can we partner with the communities to create more jobs and create more economic opportunity for those populations? I'm working on an initiative right now out of the Civic Committee where we're trying to create 20,000 jobs for people on the south and west sides of Chicago in some of the most economically challenged areas. We've been talking to the workforce development organizations. That's where you might naturally go to identify who are the people that are having economic need, who we need to get in the pipeline for jobs. It hadn't occurred to me to work with the legal services community, because you're meeting and working with those same populations, to see if we could create a partnership there for you to help identify people that we should be thinking about for employment. I think also, if you think about contributions, John had mentioned some of the lack of funding that exists for the organization. Could the business community step up and see if we could be part of the solution to try to raise resources? Also, you mentioned pro bono. A lot of our Civic Committee members are law firms. One of my members is here somewhere, Craig Martin. I don't know where he is. There he is, waving his hand very shy. He didn't put it up too high. But obviously, the legal firms are obviously great partners, but at other firms, there's capacity that could be tapped into. They have legal departments, but also there's non-legal issues that some of these organizations face that could be brought. You mentioned lending or other types of kind of advising. We have lots of banks and others that could be helping to work through some of these problems outside of just the legal context. And then the last way I would say that business could partner is by using our voice to help bring more attention to this critical issue. And one thing I've learned in my 18 months now in this job is that in Chicago, when the business community weighs in with its voice, it can be very compelling. It can move the needle on things. We've recently done that with public safety. We're doing it in other areas. No reason we couldn't be thinking about how we could lend our voice to supporting this issue.
Derek, you are absolutely right. And the voice of the corporate community needs to be loud and clear about its commitment. Let me tell you something. Laura Stein has been that voice. Laura Stein is one of the 200 corporate general counsel who signed the letter that went to Congress and said, let's fund LSC at the height at which it needs to be funded to support the services that we need to provide for those who need access to justice. Laura, thank you for being here. She is also the past chair of the organization that I run, the Leadership Council on Legal Diversity. She has been in the trenches for a long time. Laura, give us your views and those of your colleagues as you navigate and help us lead this effort in the corporate community.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Robert, and it's such an honor to be here with you and with all of you. And when, as other people have said, when John gives you a call, you pick up the phone and you're there, because he's just a hero to me. Happy 50th birthday to the Legal Services Corporation, and why we're here, to protect the promise. It's awesome. Hey, each of us has our own reasons why we care so much about access to justice. Robert, in the introduction of me, mentioned, kind of how this has just been such a part of my life growing up, and John said essentially the same thing. And so I think if we've been so blessed, as in my case, to have parents, and my father in particular, who as a leader in our profession has always deeply cared and deeply focused on the criticality of access to justice. And then he's instilled those values in me and my sisters, who are all lawyers, and there's 3 of us, and also almost all of our nieces and nephews. My kids are the exception, are now lawyers, including my wonderful nephew, Matt O'Boyle, who's a Loyola law student and here today. And then I saw the impact of my father, not just on the family, but in partnership with so many other role models like him, making such a difference for other people to decide to go to law school, decide to commit themselves to lifting others up and making that positive difference. So I think one of the things, and Derek said it right, that businesses, like so many other stakeholders in our communities in our world, that if we can inspire each other, we can just do so much more together. Robert, you asked about, kind of why care and why do businesses care? And I think, we realize that you can't have democracy unless you have fairness for all. And you can't have fairness for all unless you have access for all. And if you don't have democracy and you don't have fairness, how are you going to uphold a free society, which we all are so privileged to be part of? And so I think just the importance, and I think hopefully businesses get it too, as members of our communities, members of just the fabric of what we do, that if underserved people who are in marginalized communities do not get the access they need, it's not only not creating opportunities for so many people who can create such an impact in our communities, in our world, but it's not going to promote democracy. It's not going to promote who we are. John quoted our Constitution at the outset. So, for the role of businesses in this incredibly, critical, vital mission, there's a lot of reasons why we care that communities are stronger and more fair. There's so many reasons in which it's in our self-interest, like if there's access, potential problems, both on a macro level and on a micro level, can be solved or at least have progress against them before they become much bigger. And so it helps all of us, and it helps business. And I think also, just at Mondelez, my company, do the right thing is our core fundamental value. And our teams, our colleagues, they want to be part of living our values, and they don't want to be at a company that they feel doesn't represent their values. So it's in our best interest. And I think, I look at my own legal team, and I've got some wonderful colleagues here as well, Doug and Jonas, and they represent so many of us. Like, so many people went to law school and became lawyers because they wanted to make that impact in people's lives. And so Derek mentioned the war for talent, and you're not going to attract the best and the brightest unless, not only in their minds, but also in their hearts, it resonates with you and they feel they're part of a culture they want to be part of. And then I think also just there's so much when we get our leaders involved in supporting access to justice, providing pro bono, it lifts up their capabilities, their leadership, and again, that's good for us. But, you know, and I loved all the reasons Derek mentioned why businesses should care, and the same with Kristen about the technology and other things. But I think, you know, we just look at it as a win-win. So if we invest in people, we invest in communities, we win, and it's an investment in us as well. And it's just part of what we should do.
All right, good. Thank you for your continued leadership and that of your family. You have a number of lawyers now that are part of that legacy.
Yeah.
And speaking of legacy, Chris, your time is perfect. Now you can back Keenan.
Okay.
I mean, your family legacy as it relates to civil justice is well known. You'd have been proud of the John mentioned of your dad earlier today and the work that he did. I mean, my goodness, he's an iconic figure in this whole struggle. This is not a legal problem. This is an American problem that all of us have to solve. We are in it together, whether we like it or not. And to the extent that Derek mentioned, if we don't do that, then we're going to get a new microphone. Thank you. That in order to have the stable workforce, in order for people to prosper in this country, access to justice, as Laura said, is essential. Speak to that for us in terms of your participation on many corporate boards, part of the investment community, and those that have a real stake in making sure that America works in terms of making access to justice not only fair, but affordable as well.
Well, I appreciate that question. Before I answer it, I just want to acknowledge John Levy and respond to that story you told, that nice story about his efforts to meet my father. One of the great thrills of my time, 35 years here in Chicago, was meeting John's father at the Quadrangle Club down at the University of Chicago. And I had grown up knowing who he was, because I grew up in Washington, D.C., right outside of the city in McLean, Virginia. And many of the people who were part of my parents' social life, and therefore I knew them, they were all Justice Department lawyers or U.S. attorneys from all over the United States. And they were distraught about what was happening under the Nixon White House and Nixon Justice Department. And they thought the United States Department of Justice would be permanently diminished by what Nixon had done during the Saturday Night Massacre. And then your father became the Attorney General of the United States, and everybody around my parents, my uncle Ted Kennedy, who was the head of the Judiciary Committee, were thrilled. And they thought, finally, somebody who's worthy of the Justice Department will lead it. And he turned he restored people's faith in the Justice Department. So thank you for the opportunity to meet one of the greatest men of the 20th century. Thank you, John. Should I just go now?
Go.
Okay, I meant leave after those comments, but because they're important to me. I do think that not everybody feels like the folks feel in this room that this issue matters. And I think it's important to think about how to reach folks who are either oblivious, turn a blind eye, or a deaf ear. I think about how I learned about the importance of a fair society and the rule of law. And I grew up, as I said, outside of Washington, D.C. in McLean, Virginia, a house called Hickory Hill, where my mother and father had raised my 11 brothers and sisters. And we would have people like, Martin Luther King's family would come by, Mrs. King, Coretta, and then Marty and the rest of the family were regular visitors, and Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta and Sidney Poitier. And one time, one time, Stephen Stills stopped by. I was telling the kids the story the other day, and he drank an entire bottle of Jack Daniels. And I was about 12 years old, and I was the oldest at home, and my mother was looking at me like I needed to deal with this issue. But it was all, it was really interesting stuff. But Stills, who had written maybe the greatest anti-war song of our generation anyways, it was incredible to meet him. But he said to me, what are you guys doing? And my younger brother Max, who was about 10 or 9, and Douglas was about 8 or 7, and Rory's about 6. And we're like, what do you mean, what are we doing? And he said, what are you doing, to carry on that legacy, to continue to fight for civil rights here and human rights abroad? And that notion of, I guess, maybe a little peer pressure, a little bullying maybe, but it's important to have people in your lives who are going to push you in that way. And we need to become the people in other people's lives who push them to make this country better. I think for me and our family, the issues around fairness, around the rule of law, around civil rights and human rights, it's in our DNA. And I think it needs to be in the DNA of every American.
Chris, I couldn't have said it better. Thank you, all of you, for your leadership and for your contributions today. I will note Chris is a Boston College Eagle. Laura is a Big Green Dartmouth graduate.
And Harvard.
And Harvard. We're just doing undergrad. Chris.
But Martha's my.
I know. You got to do it. And Kristen, Princeton Tiger, you know I'm going to save the best for last, right? Derek, national champion, Michigan Wolverine. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in thanking our family.